The alien fleet appeared in the sky like a storm, dark and unrelenting, casting shadows over Earth. For months, the planet had been under siege, bombarded by the relentless power of the invaders. Their ships, massive and imposing, filled the sky, blotting out the sun. Humanity's defenses were almost gone, cities had crumbled, and the survivors were scattered, hiding in underground shelters or fleeing to distant corners of the world. The aliens had thought that humanity was finished. They had underestimated the power of human resilience, though, and that mistake was about to cost them everything. Among the scattered remnants of humanity, there was one last hope, a ship known as the Horizon. This ship was a relic, a symbol of humanity's strength and will to survive. It had been built long ago, before the war had even begun, when humans still dreamed of exploring the stars. It was old, perhaps even outdated by modern standards, but it was still functional, and more importantly, it was capable of far more than the aliens realized. When the Horizon emerged from the shadows of a dying moon, it was almost invisible. The aliens' massive sensors couldn't pick it up. The humans had made sure of that, using old technology that the aliens hadn't thought worth their time to study. The Horizon was cloaked, hidden from view as it traveled towards the heart of the alien Armada. On board the Horizon, Commander Alara Harris stood at the helm, her eyes sharp and calculating. She was a seasoned veteran, one of the few humans who had survived the worst of the war. Her crew was a mixture of veterans and young soldiers, all of them ready to fight to the last breath. Alara knew what was at stake, and she knew that this ship, this mission, was humanity's final chance. If they failed, the human race would be wiped out. If they succeeded, they would send a message to the alien invaders humanity was not to be underestimated. "Prepare for battle," Alara said, her voice steady but filled with purpose. The crew began their preparations, moving quickly and efficiently. As the Horizon moved toward the alien fleet, the air in the ship felt tense, charged with anticipation. Every person on board knew this could be their last mission, and yet none of them hesitated. As the Horizon moved closer, the ship's weapons were brought online. The old systems hummed to life, the lights flickering briefly before stabilizing. Alara watched the display in front of her, the alien ships growing larger as they neared their target. Her mind raced with plans, strategies, and contingencies. But deep down, she knew there was only one thing that could turn the tide of this war. A single shot, fired at the heart of the enemy. Suddenly, the Horizon's sensors went off. The alien ships had detected them. They weren't fooled by the ship's cloaking forever. Alara cursed under her breath, realizing that their surprise attack had just been blown. "All hands, brace for impact," Alara ordered, her voice now full of urgency. The Horizon swerved, narrowly avoiding a barrage of laser fire that came from one of the alien dreadnoughts. The ship shook from the impact, but Alara held steady at the helm, guiding the ship through the chaos. "We can't fight them head-on, not like this. We have to outsmart them," she thought. Her mind worked quickly, calculating the best angle of attack, looking for any advantage they could exploit. On the alien command ship, General Zoreth stood in his control room, staring at the human's small ship on his screen. "A single human ship?" Zoreth sneered. "Pathetic. They think they can turn the tide with just one vessel? It's nothing more than a desperate act of defiance." He turned to his officers. "Launch the fleet full force and destroy them. Make an example out of them for any other humans who might think they stand a chance." The order was given, and soon the sky above Earth was filled with the deadly dance of alien warships. The Horizon was surrounded, but Alara remained calm. Her training, her experience, and her understanding of human ingenuity gave her the confidence she needed. She had a plan, and it would work. "Fire!" Alara yelled. The Horizon's weapons erupted, shooting through the dark sky. The first few shots missed, but then the next round hit its mark, a direct hit to one of the alien dreadnoughts. The ship's hull shattered, sending debris scattering into space. the alien fleet was thrown into disarray. Zorith's command center was filled with shouts of panic as his officers scrambled to adjust their tactics. What just happened? Zorith barked. His face twisted in anger. They're just one ship. How could they do this? Ilara's fingers gripped the controls tightly as she watched the chaos unfold before her. The aliens, once so confident, were now unsure. The horizon had sent them a message. Humanity might be beaten, but it was far from broken. With one shot, Ilara had not only hit the heart of the alien fleet, but she had also struck at their pride. And it was that pride that would be their downfall. Stay focused, everyone. Ilara called to her crew. We have to keep them off balance. Keep attacking the weakest ships. Don't let them regroup. Her orders rang clear, and the crew followed them with precision, working together to push the alien forces back on the ground. Hidden in the bunkers and shelters, humanity watched as their last hope fought back. Their faith had been shaken by months of alien domination, but now, as the horizon struck fear into the heart of the invaders, a spark of hope reignited. In the people of Earth, it wasn't over yet, but the aliens had learned a valuable lesson. Humanity would never give up without a fight, and no matter how far the aliens pushed them, humanity would keep pushing back. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that no one could ever break the human spirit. As the battle continued, Ilara Harris stared at the alien fleet on her screen. She had just fired the first shot in what could be the most important battle in human history, and it was up to her and her crew to make sure they didn't waste it. The battle between the alien armada and the lone human ship had begun, and the skies above Earth were filled with chaos. The horizon, a single vessel in a sea of enemy warships, had become the symbol of humanity's fight for survival. Ilara Harris, the fearless commander, gripped the controls of the ship, her eyes darting from one screen to another as the alien fleet closed in. The odds were stacked against them, yet she remained calm, focused. Ready the secondary weapons. Ilara commanded. Her voice was steady, but beneath the surface, the tension was undeniable. The horizon's first missile had already struck, tearing apart one of the alien dreadnoughts. The explosion had sent a shockwave through the armada, shaking their confidence. But Ilara knew it was just the beginning. There was no time to celebrate, not when so much was on the line. The alien ships responded quickly, opening fire with their massive energy cannons. The horizon swerved and dodged, narrowly avoiding the blasts that came from all directions. The ship shook with each near miss, but Ilara held her ground. Steady, everyone. Don't let them corner us, she ordered. Her crew worked in unison, each person doing their part to keep the ship moving and firing. The horizon was agile, its older technology still holding up against the onslaught, but Ilara knew that they couldn't keep this up forever. They were running low on ammunition, and the alien fleet was relentless. Target their engines, Ilara said. Her voice was calm, but the pressure was building. She wasn't just fighting for her life. She was fighting for the future of every human on Earth. If we take out their engines, we can slow them down, maybe even force them to retreat. The crew nodded, preparing to fire again. The horizon's secondary weapons fired, sending several smaller missiles towards the nearest alien destroyers. This time, the missiles hit their marks, and the alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. A ripple of shock ran through the fleet, but it wasn't enough to stop them. The aliens were already regrouping, sending in more ships to surround the human vessel. We're surrounded, one of the crew members said, his voice tinged with fear. They're closing in on all sides. We won't be able to get out of this. Ilara glanced at the screen. The alien ships were forming a tight circle around the horizon, blocking any escape routes. The odds had worsened, but Ilara didn't give in to fear. Instead, she saw opportunity. We're not backing down, she said firmly. We're going to make them regret thinking they could crush us so easily. With the alien ships closing in, Ilara made a split-second decision. She pulled the ship into a sharp dive, plummeting down toward the surface of the moon they had been hiding behind. The Sudden maneuver caught the aliens off guard, and the ships that had been tracking them overshot, leaving an opening. Ilara had done what seemed impossible. She had outmaneuvered the alien armada. Now, give them everything we've got. Ilara shouted. The crew responded instantly, sending another barrage of missiles and energy blasts toward the alien ships. The explosion from the horizon's cannon fire lit up the dark void of space. But the battle was far from over. The alien ships were wounded but far from defeated. One of their largest dreadnoughts fired a massive energy blast, hitting the horizon directly. The ship shuddered violently as the blast cracked the outer hull, sending sparks flying across the control room. Damage report. Ilara barked, her voice tight with urgency. Shields are down to 35%, hull integrity at 40%. We're still in fighting shape, but we can't take many more hits like that, the engineer replied, sweat beading on his forehead. Ilara knew the odds were slipping away. But there was still hope. They were close to striking a blow that would send the aliens reeling. We don't need to win every fight, Ilara muttered under her breath. We just need to make sure they know we're not easy targets. With that thought in mind, she made a bold move, increasing the horizon's speed and racing toward the largest of the alien ships, the flagship. If they could take down the heart of the enemy's fleet, it might be enough to break their momentum. The horizon flew through the chaos, dodging laser beams and plasma shots. It was a terrifying moment, but the crew followed Ilara's lead without hesitation. Prepare for close combat, Ilara instructed. We're going straight for the flagship's weak point. Get ready for a full assault. This is our best shot. The ship's weapons began to power up once more, each blast shaking the air around them. With one final push, the horizon collided with the alien flagship, its weapons firing in all directions. As the ship rammed into the heart of the enemy vessel, the horizon's crew was in the thick of it now, fighting for their survival as the battle around them raged on inside the alien flagship. Chaos erupted as Ilara's ship struck, causing the enemy's command center to overload. Sparks flew as alien officers scrambled to regain control. What is this madness? General Zorath, the alien leader, roared. His calm, calculating demeanor was shattered by the human's audacity. He could hardly believe that a single ship had caused this much damage. We underestimated them, Zorath muttered, his eyes narrowing. This will not go unpunished. He stood from his command chair and issued a new order, one that would spell the beginning of the final confrontation. But Ilara's crew wasn't finished. They launched a final, devastating barrage, targeting the flagship's power core. The blast sent shockwaves through the alien ship, causing it to begin to fracture from within. We did it, Ilara whispered, her voice filled with relief. Now, let's make sure they never forget what we're capable of. The alien flagship, once a symbol of their dominance, began to break apart. The explosion that followed lit up the dark sky like a supernova, sending a clear message to the rest of the alien armada. On Earth, humanity's last hope had just struck the first decisive blow. The war was far from over, but the aliens had learned a painful lesson. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The once perfect cohesion of the alien armada was beginning to fracture. The horizon's surprising attack had sent ripples of confusion through the ranks. The first dreadnought was destroyed, and several other ships had suffered significant damage. It wasn't just the firepower of the horizon that had shaken them. It was the audacity of humanity itself. The alien fleet, once so confident in its inevitable victory, now hesitated. Inside the alien mothership, the mood was tense. The previously calm and calculated air now heavy with frustration and anger. General Zorath, the leader of the Armada, stood at the center of the war room, his broad, chitinous fingers gripping the edge of the command table as he stared at the holographic displays. The Horizon had destroyed one of their flagship ships and caused extensive damage to others. Damage they hadn't anticipated from a single human vessel. Report! Zorath's voice rang out, his authority and frustration mixed together like a potent brew. His eyes, glowing a faint red, scanned his officers, searching for someone to blame. The officer in charge of communications bowed his head. "The humans have far surpassed our expectations, General. The Horizon is using old technologies, outdated even, by their standards, but they seem to be more effective than we anticipated." "Do you mean to tell me that they have better strategy and better weapons than our most advanced fleet?" Zorith's voice was sharp, his words deliberate. His alien features twisted into a scowl as he approached the command table. The communications officer looked up, his body rigid. "They are fighting with ferocity, General. Their tactics. They're unpredictable. Our ships are attempting to adjust, but their unpredictability makes them difficult to engage. We've lost 4 dreadnoughts, with several other ships disabled. The Horizon is like a shadow appears out of nowhere and strikes before we can retaliate." Zorith's antennae twitched with anger. How could this be happening? The humans were supposed to be fragile, easily crushed beneath their superior alien power, but now their tiny ship had ignited something in the alien Armada that the aliens had never expected. Fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of a species they had written off as inferior. But Zorith was not one to show weakness. He would not allow himself to be intimidated by a single human ship. "Then we will crush them," he declared, his voice calm but filled with malice. "Deploy the remaining dreadnoughts. Send everything we have left at that human ship. If we must, we will wipe out their entire species. We will show them what happens when they defy us." His command was clear, and immediately, the alien forces responded. Ships from all corners of the fleet moved to converge on the horizon, each one a massive, formidable presence of its own. Zorith's officers moved quickly, pressing buttons and issuing commands to coordinate their assault. But as the alien fleet charged forward, Zorith couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that they were chasing an enemy they didn't fully understand. The Horizon may have been a single ship, but it had struck at the heart of their pride. The aliens were no longer fighting for victory. They were fighting to preserve their image, to prove to themselves that they were still superior. And in that moment, it was more than just a battle for survival. It was a battle for dignity, a battle to show that their species was not vulnerable to something as insignificant as humanity. Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon, Commander Alara Harris watched the approaching fleet on the main display. The alien ships were closing in, surrounding them on all sides. She stood tall, her back straight, never betraying the intensity of her thoughts. Her mind raced as she analyzed their options. The Horizon had already inflicted significant damage to the alien Armada, but now the odds were stacked higher than ever. "We can't hold them off much longer," Alara said, her voice steady but tinged with concern. "They're bringing in more ships. It's a full-on assault now." Her crew was already preparing for the worst. The weapons systems hummed, the shields crackled with energy, and the engines roared to life as they prepared to maneuver. But Alara knew they couldn't keep dodging forever. Eventually, the Horizon would run out of space to maneuver, out of time to strike. Their only hope lay in the secret weapon hidden deep within the ship's hull. "Captain, we have the weapon ready," her chief engineer said, his face a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "It's going to be our last chance. If we don't act now, the fleet will overrun us." Alara looked at the weapon's status report on the screen. The disruptor technology was humanity's most advanced weapon, capable of disabling the alien fleet's central command systems and disrupting their ability to communicate and coordinate. But it was also incredibly volatile. A single misfire could destroy the Horizon and take out half of the fleet with them. Alara made her decision. She turned to the crew and addressed them firmly. "This is it, crew. We'll either win here or we'll go down fighting. Prepare to activate the disruptor. This is humanity's last stand. Let's show them what we're made of." The crew nodded silently. Each one of them had faced unimaginable odds, Yet none of them flinched now. Ilara's words had lit a fire within them. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of their species, for the chance to prove that humanity had more to offer than any alien ever imagined. The weapon was primed, ready to be unleashed. But Ilara hesitated. In that moment, as she stood in the heart of the horizon, she knew that the choice to activate it wasn't just hers. It was a choice that carried the weight of everyone on board. Before she could give the order, the horizon shook violently. Alien fire had found its mark. The shields flickered, dropping to critical levels. The hull groaned in protest as a powerful beam of alien energy struck the ship's outer defenses. "We've got incoming," her tactical officer called out, his face pale as he worked to bring the shields back online. "We need to fire now, or we'll be finished." Ilara slammed her hand down on the control panel, her decision made. Activate the disruptor. Now. The weapon's energy surged, the ship's systems humming with power as the disruptor activated. The Horizon's engines screamed as it rocketed forward, charging toward the heart of the alien fleet. "Fire!" Ilara shouted, and the disruptor released. A powerful wave of energy shot across the alien fleet. Chaos erupted. The energy pulse shattered the communication networks of the alien ships. The dreadnoughts, once perfectly synchronized, were suddenly isolated, their crews scrambling to regain control. Their weapon systems faltered, their guidance systems malfunctioned, and the once feared Armada was reduced to a disorganized mess. Alien ships began firing wildly, targeting their own fleet in confusion. General Zorith's eyes widened in disbelief as the once unshakable fleet fell apart before his eyes. What is happening?" he shouted, his claws digging into the edge of the command table. "We've lost communication with the fleet, General," one of his officers said in panic. "The humans they've somehow disabled our systems. We can't coordinate." Zorith's rage boiled over. No. This cannot be happening." He turned to his officers, eyes wild with fury. "You regain control, now." But it was too late. The Horizon had succeeded. The alien fleet was in disarray, their perfect formation shattered. The battle had turned in humanity's favor. On the horizon, Ilara breathed a sigh of relief as the disruptor's pulse surged through the alien fleet. The ship's crew watched in awe as the once imposing Armada fell into chaos. The human crew had done it. Their final desperate move had paid off. But Ilara knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would regroup. They would retaliate. But now, for the first time since the war began, humanity had a chance. They had shown the invaders that they could be defeated. "Prepare for the next phase," Ilara said, her voice calm, though her heart was still racing. "This is just the start." In the aftermath of the Horizon's stunning success, the alien Armada was in disarray, their once pristine formation shattered by the unexpected strength of the human attack. General Zorith was furious, but more than that, he was afraid humanity had done something he thought impossible. They had shown their potential to fight back. And now Zorith knew that victory was no longer a certainty. He had underestimated them, and this mistake had cost him dearly. The fleet was disorganized, scattered across space, unable to communicate effectively. The heart of the invasion had been crippled, and the remaining alien forces were struggling to regroup. For the first time in his life, Zorith realized that his perfect plan might not succeed. Meanwhile, aboard the Horizon, Commander Ilara Harris was focused on the next step. The disruptor had worked, but she knew they couldn't stop there. Not when the battle was far from over. She had one final weapon hidden deep within the ship's cargo hold, a weapon that was humanity's last hope, and perhaps the turning point. In the war, Ilara walked briskly through the corridors of the Horizon, her boots clicking against the metal floors as she passed crew members preparing for the next assault. There was no time for rest. The disruptor had caused chaos, but the aliens were regrouping, and once they did, They would strike back with overwhelming force. Ilara needed to act quickly. She needed to unleash the final weapon as she entered the weapons bay. Her chief engineer, Rylan, stood at the control panel, overseeing the final preparations. His face was grim, but there was a look of determination in his eyes. "Commander," he said, nodding respectfully, "it's ready. The prototype is in position and fully charged, but I must warn you, this weapon is unpredictable. It could give us the edge we need, but it could also destroy us." Ilara nodded. She had known the risks from the beginning. The weapon was a gamble, a last-ditch effort to turn the tide of the war. If it worked, it would create a massive gravitational field that would pull in enemy ships, forcing them into a vortex, effectively rendering their weapons useless. But if it failed, it would destroy everything within its reach, including the horizon. "We don't have a choice, Rylan," she said, her voice firm but filled with the weight of the responsibility. "Activate the weapon. We need this chance now." While they're still disoriented, Rylan hesitated for a moment, then nodded, his fingers moving quickly across the console. "Beginning activation sequence now, Commander," he said. "Power levels are rising. It's going to be a dangerous ride, but we're ready." The room filled with a low hum as the energy gathered within the ship's core. Ilara could feel the vibrations. In the floor beneath her, like the entire ship was preparing for something enormous, the air felt thick with anticipation. This was the final step, and there was no turning back. Outside, the alien ships were beginning to recover. Their commanders were reorganizing their forces, repairing their systems, and getting ready to strike again. But they didn't know what was coming. The horizon had just unleashed the weapon that could change everything. Weapons charge too. 75%, Rylan called out. "We're almost there, Commander. We'll need to aim it just right, or it could pull us in two. But once it's launched, the alien fleet won't know what hit them." Ilara didn't respond immediately. She was looking at the holographic display in front of her, the flickering images of alien ships assembling once more. There were too many of them, a vast armada that would crush humanity's last stand if they didn't succeed. The weapon was humanity's last hope, but would it be enough? "Commander, the weapon's ready for launch," Rylan said again, his voice filled with quiet urgency. Ilara gave a quick nod. "Do it." With a deep rumble that shook the horizon's framework, the weapon fired. A massive pulse of energy shot out from the ship's core, spiraling toward the alien fleet. For a moment, there was complete silence, and then a massive shockwave rippled outward. The surrounding alien ships felt it first, as if the very fabric of space itself was bending around them. The effect was immediate. Several of the alien ships, their systems still recovering from the earlier attack, were pulled violently toward the pulse. The gravitational field created by the weapon was intense, pulling their ships out of formation and into a chaotic whirlpool of wreckage. Alien ships collided with one another, their weapons firing uncontrollably as their systems spiraled out of control. "Now!" Ilara shouted, her voice sharp with the urgency of the moment. "Target their weak points. Focus on the ships that are falling into the vortex." The crew responded quickly, firing everything they had. The alien ships that were being pulled into the gravitational field were easy targets, unable to dodge the human fire. Explosions erupted in space as human missiles and energy blasts tore into the alien ships, further destabilizing their already chaotic state. On the alien mothership, General Zorath watched in disbelief as his fleet fell into chaos. His officers were scrambling to regain control, but it was too late. The horizon had created a gravitational maelstrom, trapping his ships in a vortex of their own making. The once proud Armada was now nothing more than a collection of isolated ships, helpless against the human assault. How could this be happening? Zorath muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the screen. The entire fleet was in disarray. Ships were colliding with one another, their systems offline, firing wildly at anything in sight. "We are losing," he said, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. "We cannot lose this. The humans are not meant to defeat us. They must not." He turned to his second-in-command, a tall alien with sharp, angular features. "Get me all available reinforcements," Zorath ordered, his voice cold. "I'll crush them myself if I must. Prepare for a final offensive. We can still win this." But Zorath's words rang hollow. Deep down, he knew that the battle had already been lost. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had used their final weapon to defeat an army that had believed itself invincible. Aboard the horizon, Alara watched as the alien fleet crumbled before her eyes. Ships that had once appeared unstoppable were now nothing more than vulnerable targets. The gravitational vortex had turned the tide of battle, but she knew this was only a temporary victory. The aliens would regroup, they would adapt, and the war would continue. But for now, humanity had won. And that victory would mean more than just survival. It would mean that humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not as a fragile, easily dominated species, but as a force to be reckoned with. "We've done it," Alara said quietly, her voice filled with quiet pride. "We've made them see that we're not just survivors. We're fighters." The crew erupted into cheers as the alien ships continued to spiral into the vortex, but Alara remained calm. This was only the beginning, and the battle ahead would be even harder. But for the first time in months, she allowed herself a moment of hope, a hope that humanity could stand up to the stars, that they could face whatever the universe threw at them and still come out victorious. The horizon had done the impossible. The alien fleet, once a nearly unstoppable force, was now scattered, disorganized, and reeling from the effects of humanity's final weapon. But Alara knew this was only a temporary reprieve, a brief flicker of hope in a long and brutal war. The aliens, no matter how fractured, would not stay down forever. They were relentless, and now that their pride had been wounded, they would strike back with fury. The Horizon's crew had taken a moment to celebrate their success, but Alara could see the anxiety in their eyes. The battle was far from won. The alien Armada was gathering again, albeit slowly, and they would come for the horizon with everything they had left. Alara stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen as the stars twinkled beyond the vast expanse of space. The wreckage of alien ships floated around them in the quiet, a testament to the battle they had just fought. But soon, that silence would be shattered. Alara could feel it in her gut, the calm before the storm. "Captain," her tactical officer said, his voice filled with urgency, "the alien fleet is regrouping. They're forming a new formation, but it's not like before. They're learning. They're adapting to our tactics." Alara clenched her fists. "I knew it wouldn't be this easy," she muttered. "What do we have left?" "We have a few remaining missiles," the tactical officer replied, his tone grim. "And the disruptor is still active, but we can't rely on it again. The aliens will have adapted to that as well. We're out of options, Commander." Alara turned to her chief engineer, Rylan, who was working frantically at the console. "Rylan, is there anything left in the horizon that can turn the tide?" Raylan looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. "We have one last option, Commander. A failsafe. It's an experimental drive system, one we never intended to use unless we absolutely had to. It's dangerous, and I can't guarantee it will work, but it might give us the edge we need to escape or to deliver a final blow." Alara raised an eyebrow. "Escape or deliver a blow? I don't need options, I need results. What are you suggesting?" Rylan hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "The experimental drive is capable of a one-time hyperspeed jump. It can send the horizon faster than any other ship in the fleet, faster than even the alien dreadnoughts can track. But there's a catch. The energy required to power it will drain most of our systems. We'll have no shields, no weapons, no navigation. We'd be flying blind, hoping to land somewhere safe, or we could use it to strike deep into the heart of the alien fleet. It's a one-way ticket, either way. Ilara stared at him, her mind racing. This was madness. The Horizon had already taken enough damage. They had no shields to protect them, and their weapons were nearly depleted. The idea of using such a risky, untested drive system was insane. Yet, as she looked around at the crew, at the men and women who had followed her into this war, she knew they were all on the same page. They had no choice but to act. "We don't have the luxury of time," Ilara said, her voice filled with determination. "Prepare the drive, Rylan. We're not just going to survive, we're going to finish this." Raylan nodded, his face a mask of both fear and resolve. "Aye, Commander." As the crew moved to prepare the ship for the dangerous maneuver, Ilara took a deep breath and glanced out at the alien fleet. It was forming again, but they were still recovering. They had learned, yes, but they were vulnerable. If they could make the jump, it might just give humanity the victory they needed. "All hands brace for impact," Ilara said, her voice steady. Over the comms, "We're making the jump." Seconds passed. Then minutes. The Horizon's engines roared to life as the experimental drive activated. The ship shuddered violently, and Ilara gripped the armrests of her command chair. The entire ship was trembling as the power surged through the systems. She could feel the energy in her bones, could feel the immense pressure building within. "The ship, Rylan, what's the status?" Ilara asked through gritted teeth. "The drive is charging," Raylan's voice came through the comms. "It's almost ready, just a little longer, Commander." The ship's engines flared as the Horizon surged forward, a blast of energy pushing them faster than any ship had ever gone before. The stars in the view screen began to blur and twist, as if the very fabric of space was warping around them. And then, in an instant, the Horizon was gone. The alien fleet was still recovering. General Zorath stood at the command table, watching, as his officers scrambled to repair the damage and regroup their forces. The alien ships were spread out, still trying to regain their coordination. The Horizon had dealt a devastating blow, but the general was determined to crush the last remnants of humanity. "Have we located their position?" Zorath growled. "We've lost track of them, General," his communications officer replied. "They disappeared. It's as if they vanished from space altogether." "What do you mean vanished?" Zorath snapped. "Track them again, now." "We can't, sir," the officer stammered. "There's no trace of them. The sensors are completely offline. It's like they jumped into another dimension." Zorath clenched his fists. "That's impossible. No human technology is capable of—" Before he could finish, an alarm blared through the command room. A bright flash of light appeared on the outer perimeter of the fleet. Zorath turned toward the view screen, his eyes widening in shock. The Horizon had reappeared right in the middle of their fleet, but it wasn't just the Horizon that appeared. As the human ship materialized, a powerful shockwave followed it, sending nearby alien ships spiraling out of control. The blast was so powerful that several of Zorath's ships collided with each other, their hulls cracking under the pressure. "Fire! Fire now!" Zorath shouted, his voice trembling with fury. "Destroy them!" The Horizon's weapons fired with precision. The alien ships that had been thrown into chaos were sitting ducks, unable to defend themselves. One by one, their shields failed, and explosions ripped through the Armada. But Ilara knew they had only moments before the rest of the fleet retaliated. All remaining missiles launched them. Ilara ordered. The Horizon fired its remaining payload into the heart of the alien formation. Massive explosions erupted, and the alien fleet, already destabilized, began to crumble under the onslaught. For a brief moment, it seemed like humanity might actually win, but Zorath wasn't finished yet. He was relentless. With a growl of rage, he ordered every remaining ship to converge on the Horizon. "Commander, we're out of ammo," Rylan said, his voice laced with panic. "We've hit the last of our reserves. If we don't get out of here, they'll destroy us. Ilara glanced at the rapidly approaching alien ships. They were closing in fast, their weapons primed and ready. She knew what she had to do. "We can't escape," she said, her voice calm but determined. "But we're not going down without taking them with us. All hands, prepare for impact." She gripped the controls, her mind racing with one final, desperate plan. The horizon surged forward, straight toward the alien fleet. The remaining energy surged through the ship, and Ilara could only hope they had done enough. The weapon, the final weapon, was still active. "We're going to take them all down, or we're going to burn together," Ilara said softly, the words almost a prayer. The horizon collided with the heart of the alien fleet, and the last battle began. The horizon had slammed into the heart of the alien fleet, and for a moment, everything seemed to slow down. Explosions erupted in all directions, as the remaining alien ships attempted to turn their firepower on humanity's last hope. General Zorath, watching from the safety of his mothership, had no idea how close he was to losing everything. The blast wave from the horizon's collision had thrown his command ship off course, and now he could only watch helplessly as his fleet crumbled around him. Inside the horizon, Commander Ilara Harris gripped the controls as her ship was rocked by yet another massive explosion. Sparks flew across the cockpit, and alarms blared as systems continued to fail. The ship was shaking violently, and it felt as though the very walls of the horizon were going to collapse. But Ilara was determined. She wasn't about to let her crew down, not when they were so close to victory. "Report!" Ilara shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Shields are gone, Commander." Rylan, the chief engineer, yelled over the comms. "Hull integrity is at 15%, and we're losing power in the main reactor. If we don't shut down the core, we'll have a meltdown." Ilara's mind raced. The horizon was barely holding together, but it had done its job. The aliens were disoriented, their formation broken, and several of their ships had already been destroyed or disabled, but now they were regrouping. Zorath was too cunning to give up without a fight, and Ilara knew that a final push from the alien Armada could wipe them. "Out! Shut down the reactor," Ilara ordered. "We'll have to fight this one without the ship's full power." Raylan hesitated, glancing nervously at the control panel. "Commander, if we cut power to the reactor now, we'll be sitting ducks. We won't have enough energy for the drive system, and we'll be dead in the water." "I know," Ilara replied, her voice firm. "But if we keep fighting at full power, we'll be torn apart. I need you to trust me on this. We've got one final chance to strike." Raylan nodded reluctantly, fingers flying over the console as he began the shutdown procedure. The lights in the ship dimmed, and the ship's systems went quiet. The hum of the engines, once a constant presence, was replaced by an eerie silence. The horizon was now an empty shell, powerless and vulnerable. But it still had one final trick up its sleeve, the secret weapon that would turn the tide once and for all. The alien fleet, recovering from the chaos caused by the horizon's charge, was reorganizing. Zorath knew that he needed to act fast. The humans were on the brink of defeat, and he couldn't afford to let them regroup. He had to end this now. "Prepare the final assault," Zorath ordered, his voice like ice. "We'll break their defenses once and for all. Leave no survivors." Ilara could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She was running on fumes, but she wasn't about to back down now. She had one final move to make one desperate. Gamble. The weapon hidden within the horizon's cargo hold was humanity's last hope, and it was all that stood between them and annihilation. "Activate the drive," Ilara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Rylan's eyes widened. "Commander, we're barely holding together. We'll burn out before we can get close enough to use it. If we turn on the drive now, we'll be nothing but debris floating in space." Ilara locked eyes with him, her gaze unwavering. "Do it." "With." A heavy heart, Rylan obeyed. He punched in the final code, and the Horizon's engines roared to life. The ship's hull creaked under the strain, but it held. Just a little longer, Ilara thought. They had to make it just a little longer. The Horizon shot forward with incredible speed, the experimental drive system pushing the ship faster than the eye could track. The alien fleet had no time to react. As the Horizon zipped past the nearest alien ship, Ilara punched a button on her console, sending a signal to the secret weapon. The weapon's energy field expanded, covering the entire area and the Horizon. The effect was immediate. The nearest alien ships were yanked toward the Horizon, as if an invisible hand had reached out and grabbed them. Their weapons fired wildly. But the ships were no longer coordinated. They collided with each other, sparks flying as their hulls cracked under the sudden force. The Horizon's weapon had created a gravitational anomaly, pulling everything in its path toward them. "Hold steady," Ilara shouted as the ship bucked violently. The weapon was working, but it was tearing the Horizon apart in the process. The energy needed to sustain the gravitational field was pulling at the ship's core, making the hull groan with the strain. "We're losing control," Rylan shouted over the comms. "The field is destabilizing. We can't keep it up for long." Ilara gritted her teeth. "We don't need to keep it up for long. Just long enough to hit the heart of their fleet." The Horizon blasted toward the center of the alien armada, the weapon pulling enemy ships in every direction. In the midst of the chaos, Ilara saw her chance. There, just ahead, was Zorith's flagship, the heart of the alien fleet. If they could strike it, they would cripple the entire armada. "Take us in," Ilara commanded. The Horizon surged forward, the ship's speed growing as the weapon intensified. The alien ships, caught in the gravitational field, were unable to stop there. Chaotic spirals, crashing into each other and causing explosions in every direction. Zorith's flagship, though more resilient than the rest, was still vulnerable. It had no choice but to try and break free, but the force of the weapon was too strong. The Horizon reached the flagship in a blaze of speed. The alien ship, massive and formidable, tried to pivot, but it was too late. The Horizon fired its remaining weapons, sending a barrage of missiles and laser fire straight into the flagship's weak point, the engines. The explosion was catastrophic. The flagship, once a symbol of the alien armada's strength, erupted in a blinding flash. The explosion tore through the heart of the ship, sending shockwaves throughout the entire alien fleet. For a brief moment, the skies above Earth were lit with the fire of destruction. Zorith's flagship, the key to the entire invasion, had been destroyed, but Ilara knew that the war was far from over. The destruction of the flagship had sent the alien armada into disarray, but they weren't beaten yet. The alien forces would regroup, and they would come for humanity again. "Is it over?" Raylan asked, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Ilara looked out at the wreckage of the alien fleet. The Horizon was battered and broken, but still standing. "No," she said, her voice filled with resolve. "This battle isn't over, but we've done something they never thought possible. We've shown them that humanity won't go down without a fight." The Horizon was still alive, still in the fight. The war wasn't over, but humanity had proven that even against impossible odds, they would never give up. The Horizon hovered over the wreckage of the alien armada. It was a desolate sight, burning debris scattered across the void of space, the charred remains of once mighty alien ships now floating lifelessly. But for Commander Ilara Harris, the silence was deafening. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The remnants of the alien fleet were still out there, waiting to regroup, to retaliate. It would only be a matter of time before Zorith would send his forces after them again, and this time, they might not be so lucky. Ilara leaned forward in her seat, her eyes glued to the view screen. The Horizon was barely holding together, its Shields were down, its engines were failing, and the hull was cracked in multiple places. The ship had endured more than anyone could have expected, but even the horizon had its limits. The experimental drive system had been their final gamble. And it had worked, but at what cost? "We've done it, Commander," Raylan said quietly, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion. "We've broken their fleet. They'll never recover from this." Ilara nodded, but she knew it wasn't that simple. Yes, they had dealt a devastating blow to the alien Armada, but the aliens would not give up easily. Zorath, if anything, was more dangerous now than ever before. He had seen humanity's strength, and Ilara knew he would not let that go unpunished. "Don't be so sure," Ilara said softly, her voice carrying the weight of experience. "Zorath will regroup. He'll come back with everything he has left." The crew was silent, the magnitude of their victory settling in. They had accomplished what no one had thought possible. They had fought the most advanced fleet in the galaxy and won. But Ilara knew the war was far from over. Humanity had won victory, but the road ahead was long, and the cost of that victory was still unknown. Days later, the Horizon was in dry dock, undergoing repairs, but the mood on Earth was one of cautious optimism. News of the defeat of the alien Armada had spread like wildfire, igniting hope in every corner of the planet. The once crippled human race was now standing tall, proud of their victory. But despite the celebrations, Ilara could sense the unease. That still lingered. The victory had come at a cost. They had lost many ships, many lives, and the Horizon itself was barely functional. There was no denying it, humanity was battered, but not broken. Yet, the question remained, could they survive? The next wave? Ilara sat alone in the command room of the Horizon, staring at the flickering monitors as the repairs continued. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The alien forces were in disarray, yes, but they had only been dealt a temporary blow. Zorath, despite the defeat, was still out there, and his desire for vengeance would drive him to push harder than ever before. "Commander," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was her second in command, Lieutenant Corinne. "We've received a message from Earth Command. They want to speak with you." Ilara stood up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She had been avoiding communication with Earth Command ever since the battle. There was nothing they could offer her now, but it was time to face them. Time to hear what they had to say about humanity's next move. "Put it through," Ilara said, taking her seat once again. The screen flickered to life, and General Mercer's face appeared. He was an older man, his features hardened by years of war, but there was a trace of relief in his eyes when he saw Ilara. "Commander Harris," he began, his voice warm but firm. "I've just received the report from your fleet. You've done the impossible. The alien Armada has been decimated, and the Earth's defenses have held. I can't tell you how much this means to us." Ilara nodded but said nothing. She didn't need to hear praise. She needed to know what Earth Command's next move was. The battle was over, but the war was still at stake. "We've analyzed the alien fleet's movements," Mercer continued, "and we believe that Zorath won't give up easily. His pride has been wounded, and he'll come back with a vengeance. We've already begun preparations to rebuild our defenses, but we need you, Commander. We need the Horizon and your crew. We need to keep pushing them back." Ilara's heart sank. She knew this was coming, but hearing it aloud made the reality set in. Humanity had won a battle, but the war was far from over. And this time, they would be fighting with their backs against the wall. "I'm not sure we're ready for another fight, General," Ilara said, her voice laced with frustration. "We've barely survived the last one. The Horizon is barely holding together, and our crew, they need time to recover. We need time to rebuild. We can't just throw ourselves back into the fire." "I understand, Commander," Mercer replied. "But the alien fleet is still out there. Zorath won't rest until humanity is wiped from the face of this galaxy. If we don't take the fight to him now, while he's weak, we risk giving him the chance to regroup and come back stronger than ever. Ilara ran a hand through her hair, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She had led her crew through hell, and they had come out victorious, but now she was being asked to send them back into that same fire. It wasn't fair. They had earned their peace. "We've had our victory, General," Ilara said softly, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "But I'll do what I must, for humanity, for my crew. But you need to be ready. Zenith is unlike any enemy we've ever faced. And this time, we need to hit them before they have a chance to regroup. We need to strike fast, or else all of this will have been for nothing." Mercer nodded. "We've already initiated the plans, Commander. Earth Command is preparing to launch a full-scale offensive. We need you and the Horizon to lead the charge. You've proven that humanity can stand against the odds. It's time to finish this." Ilara stared at the screen, her mind racing. The road ahead was uncertain, and the stakes had never been higher. But she had made a vow to her crew, to every human still fighting to survive. She had promised them that they would not go quietly. The alien armada might have been shattered, but the war was far from over. "Prepare the Horizon," Ilara said, her voice unwavering. "We're going after them, and this time we finish it." The next few days were filled with frantic preparations. The Horizon was repaired as best as it could be, but Ilara knew it wouldn't be enough. They had no choice but to use what little they had left to strike at the heart of the alien empire. Earth's forces were ready to back them up, but it would take more than weapons and firepower to win. It would take the resolve of every person who had fought to get this far. As the Horizon prepared to launch once again, Ilara stood at the helm, looking out at the stars. She thought of everything they had sacrificed to get to this point. The lives lost, the cities destroyed, the family members who would never see their loved ones again. She thought of her crew, who had stood by her side through it all. They were tired, they were battered, but they weren't done yet. Humanity had proven that they could stand up to anything, and now they would finish the job. "All hands prepare for battle," Ilara said over the comms. "We're taking the fight to them, for humanity, for Earth." As the Horizon powered up, Ilara's heart raced. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, and the aliens would never forget it.